How you doing, Met fans, and welcome back for another edition of the Terry Collins Show, presented by Tunnel of Towers, supporting America's greatest heroes. Donate just $11 per month by going to t2t.org. That's T, the number 2t.org. I'm John Arezzi. Let's welcome the former skipper of the New York Mets, back from New York again, Mr. Terry Collins. Terry, welcome back from the Big Apple once again.
Well, it's good to be back. I've had enough of that cold weather, John. I want to be down here where the sun's shining and put my bathing suit on and get in the pool one of these days.
Well, I certainly wish that for you, because I know how busy you've been, and that cold weather has not been fun for anybody up there. And well, welcome back to Florida. Anyway, we got a good one today. We will be joined in just a bit by SNY's Andy Martino to give us his observation, his analysis with you on the first homestand of the season and the way the Mets are looking so far. And later, we have a real treat for everybody today, as the reason you were up in New York was to honor Jay Horwitz on 45 years with the New York Mets. He will be joining us, and we'll be talking about Jay's career with him right here on the show today. And so, Terry, we'll get into the leadoff and bring on Andy Martino. The Mets produced a spectacular video which debuted at the home opener. Let's play that video right now, and then we'll get your thoughts, and Andy's on the other side.
Beat the Mets. Step right up and read.
We interrupt this program with breaking news. There's some kind of force, something powerful moving through New York City. We are currently gathering information to find out exactly what is happening right now. Step right up.
Well, we wanted to give a great introduction to Andy Martino with that video.
Wow,
Andy should have been in that video. Welcome, Andy.
I want to thank the New York Mets for creating that great video to introduce my little segment here. That's very flattering that it all leads to Andy Martino. All that was something what we just saw. How about that?
How much money do you think they put into that?
A lot.
I'm sure.
But you guys know marketing's marketing, and it pays for itself. If it brings in a few more thousand people throughout the season, it's worth every penny.
And you know what else? The Mets are really they're smart if what they're doing is taking advantage of this moment, because Juan Soto is a new Met right now. He's not going to be a new Met forever. You just took him from the Yankees. The team's off to a good start. You have a Dominican community in the city that's very strong that got super into Soto at Yankee Stadium. There's a lot of reasons why the Mets are poised to take over the town and be a big deal. So, yeah, market the hell out of that right now. Why not? They'd be derelict if they didn't.
Yeah, it was an amazing video, and I've never seen anything quite like that as far as the production values and the special effects, and it blew me away. So I felt it was a great way to introduce you, Andy. How's everything going? The first homestand is in the books, and what's the general vibe around the team and Citi Field? The atmosphere, the increased attendance. There's a lot to go over with this first homestand now on the books.
Yeah, John, a few weeks ago we talked about, I think, the positive vibes in spring training and how you could feel the excitement. You could see there were more people in Port St. Lucie than usual. And what they had to do, Terry used to call, we got to get out of the gate. That was a big phrase of yours. So they got out of the gate. They were, so far, have had a successful, the launch of the season has been successful. They've been playing well. And so that's kept that enthusiasm. So I was at the ballpark on Tuesday and Wednesday when it was like too cold for baseball. It's ridiculously cold. It wasn't just that the temperatures are in the 30s and 40s. The wind chills dipped into the 20s. The wind itself was really blowing. It was really raw. So the diehards were there. And even if there were a lot of empty seats, which you'd expect, the people that were there were really into it. So it's been a good energy around the team from a fan perspective. That's still the case. And from a player perspective, you could see the year two of this culture that they've started to build is still in place. That you have, it's a relaxed, happy confidence. It helps that Francisco Lindor and Juan Soto are pretty easygoing young guys who are easy to talk to and generally guys that like to have fun. Pete Alonso, who I was wondering what his mood would be like coming in off that contract, is in a great mood and enjoying himself. Clearly, as good a place as I've seen him in quite a few years. So the early mood around the team is good. It's, as Terry knows, it's driven by winning and losing, and they're winning right now, and that is what lifts all this up. But they had some momentum coming into the spring training and the season, and so far, very early on, they've held it. So it's good.
Yeah, I totally agree. I totally agree with what Andy just said. It's nice to get off to a good start, and as the season gets on, I mean, there's so many changes that go on. So getting out of the gate, I mean, and they got lucky. They played, they played some teams they got to beat. They're supposed to beat, and as I've said forever, when at the end of a year, a successful year, you end up beating teams you're supposed to beat, and they're off to a great start. And I think the vibe is tremendous. I mean, the video just showed it. They're capturing New York. There's more Mets hats on the street today than there ever probably has been, and I think it's great. And they, again, all it is going to take time to see what the outcome is going to be, but they've certainly put together a good product.
Yeah, they certainly have. On the pitching side of it, even though the starting pitchers, I guess only one, and David Peterson went 6 innings, everyone else is not pitched past the 5th inning. But their staff ERA, when you look at the bullpen, when you look at the starters, it's a 2.10 staff ERA, which is the best in the majors right now. They've allowed 32 runs over the 12 games. Just 25 of those runs have been earned runs. TC, then Andy, talk about the early performance of this Mets staff, and how can you have to rely on those starters to start to getting deeper into the game as the season goes on.
Well, you hope so, John. I mean, that's what I hope anyway. But and it's not to say that during times early so far this year that some of those guys couldn't have gone back out there in the 6th inning. I mean, there's a couple outings where guys are pitching pretty good, but they've got a program that they've put together. They've gone out and rebuilt the bullpen, which they've had very, very good success of so far. And, and I know Andy was just talking about how cold it was. That helps too. That helps that pitch. And it's, when you pitch in the cold, man, it's a lot easier than it is hitting in that cold weather, I can tell you. So, but they've gotten off to a good start. I like what they've done. One of the things that always hurts you is based on balls, and these guys come in and throw strikes. I mean, their bullpen they're attacking hitters in big situations, and so I'm impressed so far. And I think again, I think the starting pitcher is only going to get better. You're going to get Mania back. You're going to get Montaz back. So there's light still coming your way, and so pretty soon they're going to have a tough time deciding who's to start and who's going to relieve.
Yeah, I agree with that, Terry. And I something you said, I think, is right to the point of what the Mets are trying to do here. Is that some of the starters probably could have gone longer, but there were guys in the organization that were telling me before opening day, don't expect to see much more than 75, 85 pitches from our rotation for the first little bit here, because they're trying to make sure that these guys or at full strength in October, which is obviously where their real goals are. So the plan was to bring these starters along a little bit slowly, continue to build them up in the early part of the season. So that's what we've seen. There was some news late in spring training that Senga was going to be limited to about 75 pitches. While that was true, what's actually true is that all of them, that's just the plan. So obviously a manager has to be careful to not burn out his bullpen early. That's why you need length out of your starters. But one thing that it's kind of cool with the Mets and how they've designed their early season bullpen is they have a couple guys that can go multiple innings. And then when the guy that just did that is down, they have another guy that can do that. Kranick and Brezoban are the two main ones on that. So you use a guy for 2 or 3 ups, as they call them. He's down 2 or 3 days usually, but then you slot in the other guy for the next day or after that. So it's pieced together pretty nicely. And also there's just a lot of movement that's going to happen, roster movement through the year, where if guys do get tired in that bullpen, obviously the expectation with a modern organization is that the bullpen in September is just going to have different personnel in it than it does today. And you have to trust that the front office finds the right relievers to have an impact, guys that aren't even in the organization yet or aren't in the big leagues yet. And that then Jeremy Hefner, Desi Druschel, the pitching coaches, will then help different guys succeed throughout the course of the season.
And the Clay Holmes transition, as you wrote this week at SNY, is moving forward pretty nicely, would you say? Yeah,
for sure. So Holmes, this is a fun thing to follow because Holmes is one of those guys that talks really well about pitching. He's very thoughtful about it and just a nice, low-key guy. So he's really open. And I thought it was really interesting after his first start, which was in Houston. I was there. You guys remember in spring training, he had 4 or 5 pitches and they all looked nasty. It was like, oh, wow, this guy's got a wide array here. And then opening day, he went to sinker slider for the most part, which was like what he did as a reliever. I covered him as a Yankee reliever. It's like, whoa, wait, what happened to all those other pitches? And Carlos Mendoza said, well, it's because he was facing a lot of righties. The Astros had one lefty, Yordan Alvarez, in that lineup. And that makes sense. But Holmes said something different. He said, honestly, there were spots where I could have thrown my new changeup, and I'm paraphrasing him here a little bit. He said, basically, when the red light went on and I was in competition, I went back to what I do to get outs. It's not spring training where you're working on your pitches. It's like, oh, bleep, I'm in a game. I got to get these guys out, right? Big league game. So he just went right back to who he was. That's where he was on opening day. Fast forward just 2 starts later, which was this week, Tuesday, he started, and he pitched well. Totally different. He said first inning was a little rough. He didn't have command of his 4-seam. Second inning, he starts, okay, I don't have my 4-seam. I'm going to go to the 2-seam. Middle innings, it was sweeper, slider. And he goes, I asked him about this, and he goes, now I'm just trying to get strike 1 and then go from there. So it's just 2 starts where he's become a lot more comfortable, like improving on what pitches he uses in which situations. So that seems like a pretty fast learning curve to me. You think I'm reading that right, Terry? That progression?
Yeah, Andy, you are. But, one of the things that I think that I've liked what Clay has done, and that is he's starting to bring in those. Look, the only way that you're going to find out if they're going to be effective is to use them. And so, and I always go back to the Jacob deGrom start where, it was his second start in the big leagues where, he didn't have a feel for his breaking ball in the first 3 or 4 innings, but he kept throwing it. He didn't just discard it. He kept, pick a spot where he couldn't get hurt by it, trying to get a feel for it. And by the 5th inning, it was there, and he gave us 7 innings because, he wasn't afraid to bring it. I go back, as a matter of fact, when I was just in New York last week, we had a conversation about Noah Syndergaard. When he first got up and he had that big, powerful arm, and he was a 4-seam fastball guy, and Danny Worthington, the pitching coach, taught him a 2-seamer. He took it in the game. And sure enough, it wasn't real good in the first start, but 2 starts later, the guy wasn't throwing 120 pitches in 5 innings. He was throwing 70 because he was getting easy outs because he was not afraid to use his other pitches and made him successful. And I think what you're saying is exactly what Clay's doing. Hey, you know what? A strike 1 is perfect. But now I've got a repertoire now where I've got some other weapons. So to put in that hitter's head, and I just think again, he's developing into a starting pitcher after a very, very successful career as a reliever, and we're not going to see instant success in one or two starts. But I'll tell you what, I'll bet you by June, because this guy's got a lot of bullets left in that arm. This guy's going to be some kind of a good starting pitcher.
Yeah, and I agree, and I think it's encouraging how quickly he's gotten comfortable bringing those other pitches in. The opening day thing was a reminder that these guys are human beings. Even though he's a big league pitcher and he's really good, he just went back to what he knows for one game, but then he got past it.
And Andy, I'm sorry, but I totally agree with that philosophy.
Yeah.
Hey, look, this is what got me here. All right, I might have to make adjustments as I go, but this is what got me here, and I'm going to stay with my strength right now until maybe it's not a strength, and I got to go something else. But I've been very impressed with him. I tell you, I like the way he goes about things. I thought the other day, because after a rough first inning, you know what, he went in, came back out, and fixed it, and I was impressed by that.
Yeah.
Well, let's take a look at the offense, which has been struggling. It's been really cold, obviously. Carlos Mendoza says that doesn't matter at all, but they've gotten off to a fairly slow start when it comes to the offense. A 210 team batting average up to the point through yesterday, 642 OPS, 20th in the league with 9 homers, 18th in runs scored. And everyone thought the hitting would be the driver on the team, but right now it just hasn't materialized, and thank goodness for what's happened on the pitching side. What have you both noticed when it comes to the Mets offense at this early stage?
Well, for me, for being there, John, I think that you've got a lot of guys who aren't quite firing. They're just, other than Pete Alonso, of course, who is amazing out of the gate. But you still have some really promising signs, namely in that game in the Marlins series where the Marlins opted to walk Soto to pitch to Alonso, and Alonso then hurts them. It shows you exactly why Soto literally looked Steve Cohen in the eye when they met in the offseason and said, if I'm going to sign you, I really want you to sign Pete Alonso, because he wants that lineup protection. So when you have those guys in the middle, you're going to be fine. I think then we can go down the lineup and look at different guys. And I looked at this carefully this week and asked people that know more and see better these things better than I do. And first of all, you got a guy like Vientos who's not getting results, but the at-bats, Terry, when you speak of course, feel free to disagree with me, but the at-bats seem good. Taking his walks, hitting the ball hard. Brett Baty's a whole other conversation, who just hasn't been able to control those at-bats during his big league time. But overall, I think you have probably a few more question marks in that lineup than maybe some Mets fans wanted to see on paper going into the season. Of course, it's always hope reigns eternal before the season. But, Nimmo was down all second half of last season. Francisco Alvarez, when he comes back, still hasn't proven himself. Vientos, I think he's going to be fine, but he just did have the 1 year. So there's a lot of things that have to go right for it to be a 1 through 9 stacked lineup. But the middle of that lineup is going to be just fine, and pretty much already is. And Soto's not even – I think what we've learned about Soto is that his floor is pretty damn high, because he's not really quite Juan Soto, but he's getting on base every day and doing fine. And that's like the worst you're going to see. So that's pretty good.
Yeah, Andy, I agree. First of all, the first thing we've learned, John, through all this is the torpedo bat does not work in the cold. That's the first thing we've learned. Okay.
Yeah.
No, it's not working on either side of town right now. So let's throw that out. We got that out of the way. The other thing, and Andy's absolutely right. I mean, you're still looking, when it comes to Vientos, you're still looking at a young guy. I mean, again, and it's, he's chased a little bit more than he did last year, but you know what? He's still going to be fine. But, and again, a lot of it has to do with Soto saying, hey, look, you want to walk me? I got protection. He hasn't enlarged the strike zone to where he's starting to chase it off. He is who he is, and now it's going to realize. And I thought what Winker's done, certainly I think he's going to be an impact guy. You can platoon him with Marte. They've got a lot of options in the middle of that lineup. It's going to come down to, nobody really expected Siri to be an offensive force outside of, he's got some power, but a great defender. I think they've got a lot of options, but I'm having a tough time with Brett, because I like Brett Baty a lot as a person, and I know as an athlete, but he's trying to make an impact, and I think he's again just putting a lot of heat on himself. To he knows that McNeil's on the road back, and sometimes you put that pressure on yourself, and you try to do too much instead of just shrinking things down and making them smaller and easier. You're expanding it more and more, trying to do so much damage. So. But I like their offense. I still think their offense is going to be a major force as we get into when it starts to warm up a little bit. But it's a fun team to watch. They play hard, and again, they're just they're off to a good start, and I think things are going to get better. So I'm really expecting to see a lot of fun things out of that offense in the middle of summer.
Yeah, I do too. I want to touch upon Baty. I mean, I know, Andy, you wrote about it, where Brett Baty has to hit to stay, where Luis Angel Acuna, not as much. One thing about Baty is like during the spring, and it's a different animal, of course, but he was going after the first pitch fastball, and he was connecting, and he had a really good spring, and now he's taking a lot of first pitch fastballs, and there's a lot of pressure on him, of course. So. Talk to us about Baty and the pressure, and how long you spoke to Mendoza about it, and I guess he's safe for now.
Right, for now. I mean, always the expectation is going to be that he was going to go down likely when McNeil's activated, unless you really force the issue, and that is a lot of pressure. Better produce right now. That's not an easy situation for any person in any situation, right? And that's where he finds himself. But they know he has talent. So the idea of optioning him after he made a bad error and another bad day at the plate after yesterday's game didn't make sense. Take him to Sacramento. No one's watching. No one's booing. See if he can heat up. That makes all the sense in the world. And by the way, the other guys in AAA, the middle infielders in AAA, are not hitting. So there's nobody forcing the issue from down below either. So that also makes it an easier call. You send him down again without him producing, and I think that hurts his confidence again, and it hurts his value, frankly. It's hard to see where Baty, if everybody's healthy, it's hard to see where Baty fits on this big league roster ever, because he's not a middle infielder. And I say that with all respect for the work he's put in to learn it. But Terry, you know what I mean. There's a guy that can play second, and there's a second baseman, right? Two different things. And when you were managing Terry, this is a Sandy Alderson thing. Sandy evolved from this later to some extent, but he wanted the bat to be the carrying tool at just about every position. So Brett Baty's more of a Sandy Alderson second baseman, right?
Absolutely.
And David Stearns highly values defense up the middle. So in no world is David Stearns doing like a fantasy draft from ground zero and saying, make that guy my second baseman. It's not Baty's fault. If you stand next to Brett Baty, he's a big guy. He's got big hips. Yep. He's built like a corner guy. That's how he was born. Right? Acuna's built like a middle infielder. So for Baty to be a middle infielder, he's got to have such a hot bat. And this is the problem of making it fit. So another reason to not send him down is this is a guy who might ultimately need to find his opportunity with another team because of all these things I just said. And scouts are at these games. You'd like to show that he can hit big league pitching for down the road when you're looking to make a deal in July.
Yeah, Andy, I totally agree. First of all, second base has become an offensive position. And so, and that's what I'm sure they were hoping for after what they saw in spring training was a guy that they knew had offensive potential. That, hey, if we can take this to the big leagues, we're going to be okay, because that if we can get production out of our second baseman, that's going to make us that much better. And I go back, Andy, and you happened to be there in a conversation I had with Carlos Beltran in spring training. And he had talked to Brett. He said, look, you're taking too many good pitches. Don't be afraid to, get up there and look for that first pitch. Good. And one thing about the big leagues, John, every bat, you're going to get a pitch to hit. Okay. If they're going to pitch you're going to get a pitch to hit. You can't miss it. The good hitters don't miss it. And what's happening now, Brett's, again, he's trying to be patient at the plate. And all of a sudden he's taking pitches that he can do damage with. And Carlos, he relayed that to him in spring training. And again, there's nothing wrong with listening to one of the best players in the history of the game, who ultimately is going to be a Hall of Famer. And you know what? Use it. Use some of that stuff and be aggressive a little bit. I would much rather see a guy go up there and get a good first pitch fastball. And even if you make it out, hit it hard, hit it at somebody. because that's what your job is, to make good contact. And I think Brett's just getting himself in a hole. I truly agree with what Andy said. I'm a huge defensive believer in defense, but right now they put this team together for those two young guys to produce offensively, and they're not. Are they going to? Well, time will tell. But I think that window's closing on Brett, because I know Jeff's going to come back pretty soon, and when he does, you got to figure out who's the best bet. Who are your best options sitting on the bench? Is Brett Baty going to be one of those guys, or is he going to be a better option going down and seeing if he can get started again in AAA? Those are the decisions that the general managers make, not anybody else.
And you need a backup shortstop on a roster too. And so Acuna can give you that, whereas obviously Baty can't. So that's why the odds are against him here. Unless, of course, if he's your hottest hitter, you can't send him down. But he hasn't created that situation, obviously.
Right. He hasn't created that for sure. And we'll see how it unfolds, because McNeil is down to Florida, extended spring training, rehab games as early as maybe this weekend. Francisco Alvarez also in a game already yesterday in Port St. Lucie. Got a hit and caught 5 innings. Wanted to discuss the backup catcher right now, Hayden Sanger, who actually has done pretty well. He's got a great backstory as far as where he came from, how he made the team. And I'm sure that he feels good. He knows he's going back down as soon as Francisco Alvarez is ready. But what have you thought about Sanger, Andy? And I think he's answered a few, as you said in your column, huge questions about himself.
Well, it's huge for him personally, and great for the Mets. When he goes back down, John, he goes back down with a completely transformed reputation as a viable MLB backup catcher. Whereas he seemed like he was going to be an org guy, meaning and this is talking to Glenn Sherlock, the great catching instructor who Terry knows for years. In spring training, he'd watch Sanger throw and block, and he'd be like, I talked to Glenn, this guy's good. He'd be like, yeah, he's a big league catcher. But he's got a 6-something OPS in the minor leagues over 6 years. So you're like, that might be the tough case of a guy who just doesn't have the bat to back up in the big leagues. And he's handled the bat well, and he's played, because it's been amazing timing for him that Torrens has been hurt. You never want a guy to get hurt, but for him to get to showcase. And that's why when I asked Carlos about Sanger, I wasn't asking about his defense. We all know that's good. I was asking about his bat. What have you seen? He's handling the bat well. He knows how to get the runner over. He knows how to take his walk. He can put down a bunt. So small sample, but they may now have a guy who, when you need you can call on him for the big leagues now. And I mean, for Sanger, he seemed like a guy who was just going to be a guy to help the affiliates. You know what I mean? And there's no shame in that. I think there's a guy on this podcast right now who, Terry, would you have considered yourself an org guy as a player? Is that
we haven't?
Yeah, right. So I didn't want to throw a label on that you didn't have, but that's an example. And a lot of these guys become great coaches and managers. But now we see that Sanger is not completely overmatched against big league pitching. That's a big deal.
Andy, I'm going to throw a name out there of a guy who was an org guy when we first saw him in the big leagues. The catcher Maldonado. This guy's got 3 World Series rings now, and and because he could catch and throw and then run a game. When you have a team, I'm just going to throw it out there. Let's just say the offensive machine that the Mets have a potential of being. You're telling me Hayden Sanger can't hit 9th on that team,
right?
Catch and throw and handle a pitching staff. There's a spot for those guys. There's we've seen it in the past. There was Ray Ordonez was a guy, the shortstop for the Cubs for a long time. Sanchez. Those, you know what they did? They caught the baseball and threw you out. You know what? And there's a place on every club for those specialists when you don't have to depend on them to hit. And I think Sanger's done nothing but show everybody, hey, look, I can catch and throw in the big leagues with anybody. And so, I'll go down and get some at-bats, because he's now earned the right to get some playing time. But when he comes up, you have all the confidence in the world, if you put him back there, that he's going to do the job you want defensively.
Yeah, a big deal. That's great. And gives him value that we never knew he had. You're right. And Maldonado's a great call. He was huge for those Astros teams. And the pitchers will say, Garrett Cole will tell you that it's the best catcher he's ever had. And that has a lot of value that is harder to see for your casual fan that might just see the offensive statistics. So knowing Senker can be one of those guys, it's great. Probably just the last 2 weeks probably extended his professional baseball career by years.
Without a question. And again, that just shows you when you get the chance, maximize it. When you get the opportunity, go show somebody that you can do something, that you can play there. And you know what? Maybe he doesn't fit that the profile that, I'm just going to use a name and I don't mean anything by it, but maybe you don't fit the profile that the Dodgers want as a catcher, but that doesn't mean you don't fit the profile that the Oakland A's or somebody else wants. You look up and get in 10 years from now and you got 10 and a half years in the big leagues. So, and again, those opportunities, that's why you tip your hat to those guys who maximize those chances.
Yep.
Well, let's talk about Pete Alonso. He has had one of the finest starts to a season that he's ever had. He leads the team right now, every category, it looks like: average, homers, RBIs, OPS, hits, doubles, on-base percentage. Very confident right now in his approach, and he looks relaxed, as you guys said. Now, what have you noticed about Pete? And now that you've been around him, Andy, and Terry, of course, you are close to Pete as well. He looks like he's in better mentally than I've ever seen him before.
Yeah. Before Andy gets started, I'm going to tell you, John, the one thing that you got to do right now, you better start telling everybody what Andy Martino and I said for the last 2.5 months. They need to sign Pete Alonso.
Yeah.
They need to sign Pete Alonso and hit him behind Soto. And I think, Andy, not to pat us on, we're going to pat ourselves on the back.
Well, might as well.
Nice going. And we were right on that one.
That's right, because and Soto was right too. I need that protection. What they never wanted to do was sign him into his late 30s. And so they managed to thread a needle of having him for this year, and then we'll see what happens after. So that works out well, I get, for the moment, for everybody. So you get a motivated Pete to go get paid somewhere. Produce, you're going to get paid. Better than he got one offer that was better than what the Mets gave him, which was from Toronto, and he didn't want to go to Toronto, is what I understand. So this night, if he keeps hitting like this, obviously it'll be very different this coming off season, wherever it is. And so he's taking care of his business that he needs to take care of. And John, to your question or your point about his state of mind, this was a question with Alonso. Yep. He's an emotional player. This is what I think fans like about him, connect with too. Is he going to come in with his head down because Brandon Nimmo's got this contract that's like 3 times Alonso's contract? Pete's going to be like, I'm the guy. I'm your superstar. And I'm not saying there's a problem between him and Nimmo. I'm just saying you had $765 million for Soto and 50 whatever for me. I could understand that's a workplace thing, right? That guy makes that and I make this. And there was some question even within the Mets as to whether he was going to come in with that and dragging that with him, a human nature. And frankly, the Mets sweetened the offer a little at the end to try to invest in that not happening. Cohen gave him a few more million than he needed to offer for that morale, hoping that would work. And for whatever reason that Pete worked out with the people he trusts and in his own mind, he came in happy, as open with the media as he's been in years. He is a super sweet kid as a rookie like that. And then, as often happens when people become really big celebrities in this game, he closed off a little. And now he's like, it's a little thing. And I know fans don't care about necessarily shouldn't need to about how they treat the media, but it's like a tell on what their mood is, right? And their overall personality. He wasn't as accessible as he was at earlier his career for a couple of years. Like I said, yesterday before the game, I go up to him and we only have 50 minutes clubhouse access. And I go, he's got his bat and I go, Pete, it's not that important, but I do have a question for you if you have a minute. And he's like, I got to go hit. Can we do it after? Sure, no problem. And then he goes, wait, what time are you guys out of here? I go, well, 11. He goes, I got you right now. What do you got? Like, that was very considerate. And I'm not saying I would have seen that out of him last year or the year before. So maybe that little tiny slice of life anecdote shows you that he's in a good place as a person.
Yeah, that AAV that he got to sign the contract at 30, and now it's been surpassed by Vladdy Guerrero. And that, I think, made Pete a little happier, too, because it's going to help first baseman overall in a way. And Vladimir Guerrero, even though I don't think the Mets were going to go after him anyway because of that ticket price, but he's back in Toronto, $325 million signing bonus. I mean,
how about that? That's those Florida taxes. That's why Terry moved to Florida. You want to protect that $325 million. You don't have to pay the state taxes on it.
And if there's a lockout, it doesn't affect that signing bonus either. I mean, he still gets paid. Yeah. So
smart move by the agent and his accountants or whatever.
Yeah, but getting back to Pete, now that Vladdy is off the market, it opens up those opportunities, as Pete right now would be the number one first baseman on the free agent market next year. But he and Cohen, I mean, there's been some reports in the media that Cohen is open to maybe an extension and Pete is, and whether it happens, Cohen said he'd worry about it when he has to worry about it. But I think it's all in a good place. And even with Vladdy's AAV now at 35 mil, all Pete has got to do this year is have a great season. The offers will come in, and more likely than not, who knows? Maybe he can be a Met for life. I'd like to get you both your thoughts on that, and then we'll wrap it up.
That'd be a significant change in philosophy for the Mets. I will say that, John. It's going to get interesting. I mean, where this gets tricky on a human level is if he's that superstar Pete Alonso again all year, there's going to be like a tremendous outcry from the public, the Mets customers, but David Stearns knows that he doesn't want to pay a first baseman that kind of money into his mid to late 30s, whoever that person is. So that's going to be a little bit of like the square peg in the round hole situation. Everyone loves Pete, but the profile is what it is for what this organization believes. So that could get tricky. It would be a good problem to have, but that's what I'll say, John. I will never say never about anything, but what I will say is if the Mets extend Alonso, like long term, that would be a shocking change of thinking.
John, I've got to tell you, that's Andy's. I mean, that's what he does, and that's why he is who he is. As a manager, I don't get into that stuff. I'm going to tell you, I don't even know what long-term would be to Pete anymore. At his age. I mean, he's not going to get a 10-year deal. Is a 5-year deal a long-term deal? I don't even know. But I know one thing. If he continues to do what he's doing right now, he's going to he'll have the home run record. He's going to be right in line for the hit, RBIs, and all the things that come with being, one of the all-time great Mets. And I don't know. I know Pete well enough to say, geez, if you sign Pete so he's 32, if you sign him to a 5-year deal, at the end of those 5 years, you can just pretty much understand that his number is going to be up in the rafters. And with what he's going to do as a New York Met. And for me as a player, that meant something. I always, when Soto was out there, I used to say, gosh, I wonder if the Yankees made a plaque, an invitation plaque, and said, this is what's going to go out in the, the center field here in the next, if you stay here for the next 10 years. So, but I think because of Pete's love for the city, love for the fan base, and I think if you give him an extension that's, sound and yet pays a lot of money, I think Pete Alonso stays a Met.
I think, Terry, that was a good job of being more specific than I was. I said long term. Well, what does that mean? He's an older player than Guerrero. He's an older player than Soto, so it's not that long term. I know that in the offseason, the Mets wanted him in 2025, but not that much past. They would have taken him for 3. So if you get to a point where, like we're saying, like he's so beloved, has a great year, can you make 3, 4, or 5 if you're the Mets just because it's all going so well? Those are the questions they'll have to ask themselves. Yeah, but you're right. Long-term can mean a lot of different things, and that's where the extension thing would get tricky. But I don't think it's something that I was a little surprised it became a topic after a week or 2 into the season, however that started, because the Mets just got finished insisting that they weren't going to give him more than 3. So that's like a change after 2 weeks.
Right. And, Andy, I go back when you talked about Pete. I look at the David Ortiz situation in Boston. He, of course, a long time, he was a first baseman and then he became the DH. And so, but if Pete's bat shows that he's still going to produce, even though, okay, maybe he's slowed down at first base and you might want to make an adjustment. DHs, the great DHs today make money. Just, they're getting paid. They're going to the Hall of Fames now. So, they're going to still have some money. And I just know, I have no idea what long-term means. And I'll tell you this, John, I would be shocked. I don't think Scott Boras is a guy who negotiates long-term deals in the middle of the season.
That's true. Thanks for bringing that up.
He just doesn't. Yeah. He just has something he's not going to do. Yeah. But I just hope Pete continues to do what he's doing. I think his at-bats are great. I think his energy. I love what he said. And by the way, he's gonna have to patent that statement because they're going to continue to walk Soto to pitch to him in certain situations. That's just going to happen. So if he keeps hitting balls in the gaps and keeps driving in runs at the end of the year, no matter what that extension may look like, Pete Alonso is going to be a happy guy.
I certainly agree with that.
I do as well. Andy, as always, it's always a pleasure to have you here with us. And of course, your book, The Yankee Way, is out there and doing well. Why don't you let everybody know where to find you on social media and where to get a copy of your great book, The Yankee Way?
Well, thank you for that, John. Don't find me on social media. It's a mean place. Go watch SNY. Stay away from me on social media. And buy my book on Amazon or whatever bookstore you go to. Thanks for that.
Well, Andy, I will tell you, I love. Obviously, we're great friends, and I love to have you on the show. And it always amazes me. These guys, John, they have contacts off the chart. I don't know why the CIA and the NSA don't get these guys. Don't go find these guys and say, "Hey, we got a spot for you," because they got knowledge about what's going on in the industry like none other. And it's always been fun. It's always fun to talk to Andy because he's, up front. He's doesn't bullshit you. And it's fun to have you on and hope to see you real soon.
I'm sure you will, Terry. It's always always an honor to be talking baseball with you, whether it's on your back patio or here on the show for sure. So we'll talk to you soon.
You bet.
Thank you, Andy. Terry, I just love when Andy's on with us and just hearing you two talk baseball, him as this ultimate insider and you as the skipper for many, many years with all of your experience. Always a pleasure to have Andy on this show.
Yeah, John, you and I have talked about it. He's one of the reporters. He's one of the media guys where players trust him, managers trust him. They are not afraid to share information and then say, look, I don't, this is for your knowledge. I don't want it out there. And it never gets out. And that's the respect he has from everybody. And so to have him on the show, to hear his perspective, he's very smart. He's very in depth, but he's also a very trustworthy guy. And that's what makes him so special for me.
Well, he's always a pleasure to have here as well, and we hope to have him back real soon. Well, Terry, I just want to give you an update of what's going on with our sponsors here, are the people that bring us back for each and every show here, the Tunnel to Towers Foundation, and they are busy as they ever have been. They continue to do amazing things. They're continuing to help the families of fallen American heroes. Last week alone, in honor of the Gold Star Spouses Day, Tunnel to Towers announced it was providing mortgage-free homes to the families of 10 more American service members. This is part of the foundation's commitment to support Gold Star families with young children. And a reminder, if you're in the Charlotte, North Carolina area, there's a great event coming up Sunday, April the 27th. Tunnel to Towers stair climb is being held at the Bank of America Stadium. That's where the NFL Charlotte Panthers play. You could climb the stairs of the Inner Bowl and see that beautiful facility without fighting the crowds. It's also for a great cause as proceeds go to Tunnel to Towers. Again, that's Sunday, April 27th at the Bank of America Stadium. And there's one more thing you should know about. Just this week, Tunnel to Towers had another groundbreaking for a new Veterans Village in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. And when that is completed, the village will offer permanent housing with a range of services for more than 80 vets struggling with homelessness. You could find more information about all of the programs that Tunnel to Towers has and all the events coming up. Just go to t2t.org. We will return with our friend Jay Horwitz after these words from former Met pitcher Al Leiter on behalf of Tunnel to Towers.
Hi, I'm former MLB pitcher Al Leiter, and I'm asking you to help Tunnel to Towers Foundation.
I got a call from Tunnel to Towers, and they said, we're going to take care of your mortgage for Jimmy on Veterans Day.
All right, you ready?
It changed my life. It changed my son's life.
Just $11 a month will go a long way to support our first responders, soldiers, and veterans. Go to t2t.org for more information on how you can help.
His career with the Mets has now spanned an amazing 45 years and was highlighted this past weekend with a tribute to the organization put together honoring our next guest. Let's take a look at that tribute right now for the one and only Jay Horwitz.
Jay Horwitz, 45 years.
Happy 45th anniversary.
45 amazing years.
45 years.
45 years.
45 years, Jay. Can't say enough about how much you meant to me and my career as a young player and through, and how much you helped me and my family.
I always enjoyed being around you and being associated with you. You were always the best. Even though you didn't pick me up in Montreal, you left me hanging. I had to get a cab to the hotel. But anyway, Jay, just kidding.
Your impact you've made for so many people cannot be measured.
40 plus years we've been together, man, through the good, the bad, and the ugly.
The impact that you've had on the city of New York is beyond words.
You also assure that this organization and its alumni never forget the sacrifices of the first responders and the families and the victims lost in 9/11.
What a great moment for you. I'm so excited. You know, you've done so much for me and my family.
Your commitment and your hard work have made a lasting impact on not only me, but the countless others who have been lucky enough to cross paths with you.
You have been a man who protects the players year in and year out. I consider you family.
Jay is the same guy, totally committed to his job, totally in love with the Mets, and a guy that's helped us older fellas who wanted to have a relationship with these New York Mets.
Just glad to know that you're a friend, and I'm happy for you. No one could be more deserving of this honor than you.
I don't think you'll ever realize the positive impact that you had on me as a person and me as a player.
Thank you very much, and congratulations.
You are the face of the New York Mets.
Thank you for all that you have done, that you have contributed to the game of baseball, but also to the family of the Mets. You are Mr. Met, Jay.
That was pretty incredible. Welcome, Jay Horwitz, to the Terry Collins Show.
It's like being at your own funeral. Now I know when I die, I can know what's going to happen. At least I get a foreboding what might happen. Now it's very humble. Well, those guys are good guys. I appreciate your kind work.
You know, when you called me and said that, hey, they're going to give this, they're going to have a night for me at Citi Field. Can you get up? You know, before we got off the phone, I had the reservation already made because I know one thing when it comes to you and the alumni of the New York Mets, and we're going way back, obviously 45 years. When you call, the answer is yes. And every player, everybody you've dealt with in the past owes you so much of a thanks. And I just thought it was a great, great night, and I hope you enjoyed it.
Yeah, it was great. What I try to do, Terry, through the years, treat everybody the same, whether you're 25th guy on the team, number 1, number 2, 19, and I always try to go out of my way and not just cater to coach superstar, trying to be everybody alike, and that would make me feel good that through the years, a lot of stuff is reciprocal coming back to me now. It makes me feel good that what I try to do in my life has been appreciated.
So Jay, when you went in for your first interview and you spilled orange juice on the general manager, did you think you were going to still be here 45 years later?
Freaking chance, Terry. I mean, first of all, the background to that, I had in the winter of 1980, I had accepted a job to be a stat guy with Tony Kubek and Joe Garagiola. And I get a call to say, this is Jim McGurney from the Mets. We want you to interview for an open PR job. I said, Harold, quit bullshitting around. You know I have another job. What are you making busting my chops for? I hung up on the guy. The next day I found out there wasn't Jim McGurney. I went down to St. Petersburg. I went to the wrong hotel. I was supposed to go to the Edgewater Beach. I went to the Hyatt by the ballpark. Got there late. Spilled orange juice all over Mr. Cash's life. I remember going to the airport, called my late mom. I said, Mom, there's no way I got the job. And 46 years later, I'm still here. Who would have thought? Would have thought?
And I'm going to tell you, Jay, and as the video explained, I mean, there's not a guy that you haven't touched that came through the New York Mets. Not a guy, not a player. Jay, for me, it's your respect, not just for the people, but for the game itself. You know what it takes to be successful in New York and to guide some of these players. I mean, I'm sure you've had players who didn't want to talk to the media when the game was over or before a game, and yet you knew what was right and wrong, and you had the ability to guide those guys not only through the interview itself, but the fact of getting to understand that, hey, look, this is part of the duty as being a major league player in New York. How did you do it?
It's all about trust. I never considered myself a quote suit. I wanted to be one of the guys. I tell you my Jacob DeGrom story. Jacob comes from a small town in Florida. He wasn't crazy about doing the interviews. He used to have this game together. He would say, Jay, I'll do anything to his for you, but you got to do something for me. You remember the net we had in the middle of the clubhouse, a basketball net? Jacob would say, well, if you make 6 foul shots, I'll do whatever you want me to do. I never once made 1 foul shot, but this is my way of, letting Jacob know I wasn't this big suit guy. So I went there with the guys watching me miss. I could jerk myself. Bottom line is he did the interviews. I used to do I was like 35 years older than Jacob. We had a great rapport together. And I'm still pulling from today, but I just try to, just not come down there, always ask for something. But the biggest mistake a PR guy will make, well, I need you to do this, need you to do this, you need to do this. I would go, hey, how's your family? You need a ticket for a game. You want to go to a play? You want to go out to each place? Not always ask. And that made me help me along the way.
Well, I think what a tremendous impact you made. I mean, I can tell you, I can attest to it. When I came up first, when I interviewed the first time for the Mets job, I'm sure you don't remember the interview, but in the second interview, I came, or maybe it's the first interview. I was with Omar Minaya was the GM, and it was the year that Willie Randolph got the job. And I had been in several interviews before that. But you know what? You put when you came in and to do your section of the interview, I thought I was so impressed with because I didn't realize what an impact the media had in New York, and yet that part of the interview where you put me through the interviewing process, I just thought, wow, this guy is organized, he's complete. And part of the responsibility of a manager in New York City is to be able to deal with the media. And I thought that part of the interview was great, Jay. But when I finally got the job in 2011, you sat me down and brought me a book that had every newspaper writer, columnist, TV personality, radio personality, and took the time to explain who they were, where they kind of stand, what to expect. It made my job so much easier. And the one thing, and I've told everybody this, the one thing you made me do was learn their names. And I will tell you, that was a huge impact.
Yeah, I think that success. I got you fired though at the end, right? So I mean, it was. But listen, I've worked with I think 15 managers now in my career here. One of the best, 1 or 2 easily, because you knew these guys had a job to do. You didn't give them 1-word answers. A lot of managers, the FT goes through the press conference. Guys want to one-on-one. No, I can't do this. I got to go on the field. You understood how important this was to give the extra care sometimes as media guy, especially at the beginning of your term, where we weren't that successful. your rapport with these guys helped alleviate a lot of bad press they would have gotten. Yeah, I work with some guys who I'll give you 5 minutes, Jay, and that's the end of it. And you can't do that in this market. I mean, it's impossible to do in this market. You got to tell you knew the names, and you had by-play run. You didn't give them yes/no answers. And all the media really adored the time that you were here.
Well, it always helped, Jay, when the game was over. It was the beginning of the social media side of things. And yet here you are, you monitored all of that conversations during the game. And you alerted me after every game before I had to walk into that room, what to expect, what questions I was going to get, and allowed me, even if it was just a minute or so, a chance to formulate some answers. So, that impact was huge.
That's a really important part of the PR guy, because you're not going to, when you manage a game, every detail, you're not going to remember. So the walk we used to make from your office to the interview, a refresher course, what to expect. We didn't hit it all the time, and most of the times I think we covered all the issues that you might face, so you weren't blindsided.
Jay, I will tell you, you've got 100 stories, but, and I always try to think of the stories that when I was there, the ones that were crazy. How about the time you did the Harlem Shuffle? I think that was what it was called, the Harlem Shuffle, with the costume on, in the middle of a lawsuit you had because you broke your ankle.
Because millions didn't want that million. So that year before, I broke my ankle. We came back from a road trip, running to get my car in the rain. I stepped through a pothole. I was suing the hotel right by the stadium. So take us to the next year. And I think Jeff and some of the players, Jeff Wilpon, let's do the Harlem Shuffle. So I went out, and I think we did it with Hawkins and David Murphy got dressed in costumes. So 2 days later, the video went viral, and my lawyer calls me, says, Jay, I love your dance. You look great. You cost yourself a lot of money, man. I guess your ankle's not that bad. You can't be dancing for 5 minutes. I got a couple of bucks back, but it wasn't what my Harlem Shuffle cost me some money. So,
oh God,
I remember we went.
Again, don't ever let anything stand in the way of having some fun, do you?
I remember we went into the office with Hawkins and David Wright, and you looked at what the hell is going on here. After we did that, and the whole everybody's in costumes. It was fun. It was fun.
So I know John's got some questions for you. John, go ahead. I know you've been waiting to talk to Jay for a couple of weeks now.
Oh, absolutely. Thank you, Terry. And Jay, I did see that video of the Harlem Shuffle just a couple of days ago when I was looking at doing some research, but that was hilarious. We may have to edit that into this episode so everyone can take a look at it. It's just great. You've been 45 years. You've been a part of one World Series championship in '86. You've had a couple of other World Series appearances that you have been a part of, playoff teams, and everything from the top to the bottom. Do you have a favorite year over these 45 years that you can say, this was my favorite year ever being a part of the Mets organization?
Well, of course, '86 was great, but what I really enjoyed, the year we were carried to 15, when we got to the All-Star break, we were really below 500, and then we made a couple of trades. We got Cespedes and Tyler Clippard and Kelly Johnson and Juan Uribe, who was a good guy, but he hated football. Anytime when we go to the locker room, the guys who's talking fantasy football, Uribe hated it. Just that year, we came on and we beat the Dodgers and a couple of come from behind wins, and Murph went off in the playoffs. And then we swept the Cubs. I'll never forget Terry in Chicago after we beat them, throwing whiskey on the fans right by the dugout. And I always wondered what would happen in the first game of the series if Cespedes had caught the ball in center field. I mean, I think the first batter of the game, what did Terry? He misplayed the ball or something. I forget a little bit.
Yeah,
and then we lost the game.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah.
And we lost the game in extra innings. Yeah, and that guy, but then we came back, and I'll always remember that year. David Wright was injured most. He came back and hit a home run in Game 3 of the World Series. We really came back from the dead. It was really, we had the Wilmer Flores thing that year where he was crying on the field because he was going to get traded, and we have the film 5 days in Flushing when we beat Washington 3 days in a row, and Wilmer hits that dramatic home run in the 12th inning to win. That was really a great year, and one of the year, John, I'm really watching too is 2001. What that team did for 9/11. We went to ground zero, went to the firehouse, police stations, and everybody talks about Mike's home run. But we had a good group of guys who got what it takes to help rebuild the city, the Lighters and the Francos and the Venturas and the Zeal. But as far as baseball, 15 was pretty good because we weren't expected to do anything. We're in July, I think we were a game or two below 500. Yeah, remember the game we lost in the rain to San Diego? We blew like an 8-1 lead with Familia gave a run to the 10th inning. I thought we were dead in the water. We came back and we won.
Yeah, that was those. Everybody kind of forgot about that game, but that might have been one of the things that got us going because we were playing pretty good when the rain came in. Why those umpires we were 1 out away from the game being over. I don't know why they didn't try to get that 1 out in. To this day I don't understand it. But yeah, then we came back out after the rain delay, and Juris gave up the homer to Justin Upton, and and you know what? But I'll tell you, the guys didn't get down. They didn't get down about it. They moved on and made it unbelievably fun. You could have probably helped us with that, with all of your knowledge and all of your contacts. That Wilmer Flores night. Don't be afraid to walk in the dugout and say, "Hey, this deal has not been made."
Get Wilmer Flores, crying on the field, and everybody's trying to console him, and he's still getting walk-off hits. 10 years later with the Giants, he's still getting walk-off hits.
So
he's the king of the walk-off.
Jay, during that time, what impact, what kind of conversations were you having with the guys in Milwaukee? Because we were getting Gomez. Were you in contact with those guys at all?
No, I didn't know until. But I honestly, Terry, no one told me anything until we got down there and Sandy said the deal was not done because that Gomez had gets flunked a physical or something. But I was just knew. I remember calling Sandy during the game. Sandy, we're supposed to trade, Gomez and Wheeler and who else? Wheeler and Flores for Gomez. Flores. Yeah, and the deal didn't go through because Wilmer, of course, Gomez failed his physical. The day after you were done, Sandy held a press conference and said, "Guys, it wasn't done." But I didn't really know about it until after the game.
Wow.
And everybody was that night.
That was a crazy night, man. Crazy.
It was a crazy 5 days that end of July, and what a documentary it turned out to be. It was awesome. Jay, I mean, you've built so many bonds with so many Mets players over the course of your years there. Seaver, Gooden, Strawberry, David Wright, Johnny Franco. You could go on and on and on. What was the most surprising friendship that you formed, and if you could share that, and how did that develop?
Yeah, say it one more time, Johnny. I lost it for a second.
What was the most surprising relationship you developed with a player, a friendship, a bond? And can you explain that something that came out of the blue that you developed a strong bond with a player?
Well, probably unusual. I became very friendly with Dave Kingman, which people, we got him back the second time in 81 or 82. Dave had this reputation of hating the media, and we got to be friends. As a matter of fact, for a couple of weeks in August of that year, when he couldn't find a place, he lived at my house with me in Clifton, New Jersey. So we used to commute back and forth to the, to the ballpark. And one time he was in a clinic. He was in his uniform. I still talk to Dave these days. He lives in Las Vegas. He runs a tennis club. And, Dave was 6'7", giant. He was Pete Alonso before Pete Alonso. And I can honestly say, John, in my years here, I never had an argument with a player that I can remember. And I always, try to go the extra way. And I don't remember having a fight with a player or with anybody. I mean, I maybe have forgotten, get to be my age and forget, but I don't remember ever having a confrontation with any of the players and I had. And again, just building up trust is so important for PR guys, especially this market, that the players have to trust you. If they don't trust you, you're a dead man. You got to develop the trust of the Well, I give an example when when Doc and Darryl having their off the field problem, they didn't run away. They answered all the questions, and they knew when I was coming to them, it might be a tough thing to do. That I had their side, and to this day, I'm still friendly with them. And it's a matter of trust, John. It's more a matter of trust.
Yeah, the bond that you've built and the relationships will last forever, Jay. One thing I wanted to touch upon is that you went from the VP of Media Relations to the VP of Alumni Relations for the Mets, and that's such an important part of any organization is to have that alumni association, to have someone in charge of building that relationship. There may be players that have played with the team and they want to be a part of coming back and doing appearances and such. So how important of a role is that for you as the ultimate Mets historian, going from VP of Media Relations to VP of Alumni Relations? And talk to us a little bit about what that job entails, and I'm sure you're enjoying it.
Well, when I first got the job, so I was kind of demoted, can I say it in a nice way? At the time. Of course, they felt I wasn't a strong enough PR guy. Some people in the front office, and I was unhappy about it because I love to travel, I love the locker room. But then I began to realize I'd be working with all the guys I work with all the time. And one example, John, we had what we did. We built a Rolodex. We made calls. There was a guy. The first draft choice in the Mets in 1962 was a catcher named Hobie Lander, who passed away at the age of 90. I called him. I would make calls. How you doing? You need anything? And he said, Jay, you're the first person from the Mets to call me in 50 years. That's what we try to bring people back into the fold. It doesn't have to be the All-Stars. The people want to see the guys, coming back. We love the 69 Mets, the 86 Mets, 2015 Mets. And I just try to reach out to these guys and let them know that we care. For so long, we just really catered to 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 guys. And, and now we have ambassadors. We bring people back for autograph stuff. And we do, I just found it doesn't have to be the number 1 and number 2 guy. Basically, bring it back in the family, let know the Mets people care. And, whether it's the backup outfielder on the 69 team or, the third catcher on the 86 team, just let them know we give a damn. That's basically what my philosophy is of doing this.
Jay,
Well,
one of the things you put together a couple years ago was the Old Timers Day, and the response that the fan base gave to have that day occur was unbelievable. Do you foresee another Old Timers Day in the future?
Hopefully next year or two, Terry. We were great. We had 68 guys coming back. Ownership let us go. We did everything. We gave everybody a little ring, a couple of nights at the hotel, gifts, food, took care of their families. One of my memories of that game is a couple of guys that passed on. John Stearns, near death. He had Alzheimer's, cancer. He literally willed himself to come to that game. Died about 2 months after. Frank Thomas had a broken back, came to the game. And it was just how much these guys appreciated being back in uniform. The only problem with that, for me in the game, I left out some guys that I'm still getting crap for. Jerry Blevins, who worked with you at SNY. I didn't realize until after the game he was with the Mets for 10 years. I never invited Jerry. I promise you, Jerry, if we have another game, you'll be invited. But I think that's one of the proudest things we ever did because we did it the right way. We didn't script or anything, and the fans loved it. I think hopefully in the not too distant future, we'll be able to do it again.
They did it right. That was such an amazing experience to even attend, and I loved every moment of that, and I hope you guys do it again. And I'm sure it's a huge undertaking, but we certainly hope to see it again.
It was fun. It was really fun.
I got a couple more things, Jay. Now you're doing your own podcast now, and I listen every week. This week you were going back and reliving the biggest hoax in baseball history, Sid Finch.
Right.
So that was amazing. Tell us how that podcast came to fruition, And do you enjoy doing that on a weekly basis?
I do. I love to do podcasts with friends, not statistically orientated. So the Citi Field thing in April of in winter of '85, I got a call from Frank Cashin, who was our GM, said Sports Illustrated wants to do this April Fool's joke, and they want to know can we participate? Can we keep a joke going? I said, Frank, that's how I made my living in college, Philly Dickinson. I dealt with a one-arm fencer, a one-arm soccer player, a priest who played hockey, 43-year-old freshman football player, and the rest of them with 7 kids. Right in my alley. So George, who I loved, did the paper line and everything, concocted a story. The Mets were signing a 6'7" guy from Tibet who played the French horn, did yoga, was brought up in an orphanage, and played the French horn. And it came out in the April 1st edition that year. What people didn't realize, the first letter of the opening paragraph said, "This is an April Fool's joke." People didn't catch it. We kept it going for a day or two. And so I invited back this week Joe Burton, a Chicago school teacher who played Sid Finch, to come back. And it was a wonderful story. And, probably the greatest hoax in the history of all sports, and a hoax you probably couldn't do today with Twitter and X or whatever the hell you call these things now.
But you are enjoying the podcast, and
I love it. I deal with people, with friends, and we're retiring David Wright's number in July, so I did a podcast last week with David's father. What was David like growing up? And one of his agents, Keith Miller, and I just like to keep the relationships going and stuff that I can relate to. I like to do these podcasts and I don't have to look at notes, just from my memory, and just keep it going. I think the fans seem to like it because they get an insight of some of their heroes. That's what I hope to keep providing it to.
Well, I saw the upgraded set that you guys debuted on this episode, so it really looks sharp. I would recommend anyone watching this show the set that you now on with the comfy chairs and such.
John and Terry, thank you for having me on. CC, always looking to talk to you. I miss seeing you on a regular basis, and anything you ever need from me, I'll be there for you, like you're always there for me. And tell the missus I said hi. Thanks for having me, John.
Thank you very much, Jay. Jay Horwitz, Terry. I mean, what can you say about this guy? 45 years in, and just as amazing today as he was years ago.
Yeah, John, he's going to go down as, obviously they all call him Mr. Met, as one of the true established Mets in the history of the organization. This guy is so beloved by the players who are there now, the players who have been there recently, and in the long past, even before Jay was with the Mets. He's reached out and makes contact with all those original Mets that are still around. And, and he's so beloved in the industry. This guy for years did every All-Star game.
Yep.
The MLB would have him go do the All-Star game. The World Series, no matter if the Mets were in it or not, Jay was a PR guy on site because of his relationship with players. And I just think it's a wonderful thing to have him on the show and listen to some of his stories. He's a delightful guy, and 45 years, man, it's a long time in one spot.
Well, I'll tell you what, if the Baseball Hall of Fame ever inducts PR people, he's going to be at the top of the list for sure. He deserves to be there.
First ballot Hall of Famer.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Pleasure to have Jay here. And thank you, Terry, for making that happen, of course. Now it's time for the Tunnel to Towers Amazing Hero of the Week segment. This week, we feature many of those whose lives Tunnel to Towers has touched and impacted, and why they give back to the organization. So let's go to this very special Why I Give feature right now.
I give to Tunnel to Towers because they are a national treasure in preserving the heroes of this country.
I give to Tunnel to Towers. I think there's plenty of organizations out there, but I don't think there's anyone like T2T.
Tunnel to Towers came in and gave me and my family a home that has just been a life-changing gift. that we're forever thankful for. They've not only done that for us, they've done it for so many first responders, veterans, you name it.
They told me their mortgage program for fallen first responders. And they said that it would be their honor to help me out by covering my mortgage. I'm bawling, crying. I think they're crying. And they reassured me that this is the exact reason why they do this. To say that it's been a weight lifted off my shoulder would be an understatement. I didn't even know the weight I was going to be carrying because I didn't have to carry it.
They're personable, they're patriotic, and they truly care about those that they support. Whether it's a fallen first responder family, it's our Gold Star families for the military, it's our homeless veterans, it's all of these programs that they have. There's no other foundation like it, and I'm proud to support it each and every day. I was in 5th grade, 9/11, but I remember watching it on TV right before going to school. My dad was a police officer in south suburbs of Chicago, and he was in shock when he saw it. So I think being a 5th grader, that was the start of my wanting to serve this country.
Donate now! They're a great organization. They do miraculous things. They change lives every single day.
Tunnel to Towers Foundation.
Let us do good.
We will have another amazing Hero of the Week on our next show. Well, Terry, that's going to wrap up this episode. You can subscribe to the Terry Collins Show on all podcast platforms and on our YouTube channel. Just go to youtube.com/The Terry Collins Show. We also want you to check out our friend Jay Horwitz's Amazing Conversations with Jay, a New York Mets podcast hosted by this foremost Mets historian. And I watched the new episode just yesterday, and Jay talked about it a little bit. It tells the true story behind Sid Finch, baseball's biggest hoax, with Jay and Joe Burton, the man who became Sid Finch back in 1985. Amazing Conversations with Jay Horwitz is available on all podcast platforms and on YouTube. We also would like to thank our creative director, Marsh, and our researcher, Dominic DiBiase. Terry, it's always great to see you, and I want you to get out there on the golf course. I want you to go swimming. I want you to relax, enjoy yourself, because you're the busiest man in baseball right now. You're supposed to be retired.
Well, looking forward to it, John. Our next show will be just as good, and I'm excited to see you soon.
All right. Take care, Terry. For Terry Collins, I'm John Arezzi. We'll see you next time.